Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Sarah Carter was in her third month working at Miller Enterprises. Even after a long day filled with paperwork, she kept up a habit that had become part of her routine. She headed to the small corner market, her usual stop after work, and bought packs of bread, juice, and granola bars. After paying, she walked out carrying the bags and crossed the street to the sidewalk in front of the company. There, a small group of homeless people was already waiting. Some were sitting on makeshift blankets. "Sarah, it's so good to see you," said one of the men, an elderly gentleman with a gray beard named Henry. She smiled and knelt beside him, beginning to hand out the food. "Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have juice and granola bars." Tired faces lit up. Soft laughter filled the air as they took the snacks, and Sarah felt that warmth in her chest, the one she always got from knowing that even with so little, she could do something for them. Little did she know that from the top floor of the building, behind a glass wall, Alex Miller was watching closely. The CEO of the company wasn't easily impressed, cold, rational, and business-focused. He rarely paid attention to his employees' personal lives, but in the past few days, he had noticed that young woman leaving work and going directly to that group in front of the building. At first, he thought it was just a coincidence, but then he realized it was happening every day. Even more intriguing, she never asked for anything in return. Leaning against his luxurious office desk, Alex narrowed his eyes as he watched Sarah's smile while talking to Henry and the others. He frowned. "What does she get out of this?" he murmured to himself. Shaking his head, he stepped away from the window and went back to work. Still, part of his mind remained distracted by that peculiar employee. The next day was intense. Sarah spent most of her time organizing reports and responding to emails for her direct supervisor, the head of the finance department. The job was demanding, but she never complained. She knew she needed it. That afternoon, as she worked through a stack of documents, she felt a shadow fall over her desk. Looking up, she found Alex Miller standing right there, staring straight at her. Her heart skipped a beat. "Mr. Miller," she said quickly, trying not to sound nervous. "Sarah, right?" She nodded. She never expected the CEO himself to know her name. "How long have you been working here?" he asked, crossing his arms. "A few months." Alex nodded slowly, as if calculating something. "Do you like your job?" Sarah blinked a few times. It was a simple question, but coming from him, it felt like a hidden test. "Yes, I do. It's challenging and, well, I'm learning a lot." He studied her for a moment before giving a brief nod. "Good. Keep it up then." He walked away, leaving her sitting there confused. At the end of the day, as usual, Sarah went to the market, bought the snacks, and handed them out to the homeless. Alex, who had already left, walked out through the main entrance and saw her again, kneeling on the sidewalk, handing out food with a genuine smile. He stopped near his car, watching her in silence. Something about the scene both unsettled and intrigued him. He had never met anyone who did this every day without expecting anything in return. As he got into his car and drove home, Alex didn't realize that for the first time in a long time, his mind was on something other than work. The following days followed the same pattern. Sarah spent her workdays buried in spreadsheets and emails, completing the meticulous tasks required by the finance department. She was efficient, discreet, and dedicated, but she never sought attention. Her only break came at the end of the day when she left the company and went straight to the homeless. Alex Miller noticed. If before he had occasionally glanced out the window and seen it as something temporary, now it was different. It was a habit, a commitment, and to him, it made no sense. This girl spends her money and time helping strangers every day. That's not normal. He caught himself murmuring those words as he watched Sarah in her usual spot, kneeling, handing out snacks, and smiling. She looked so genuinely happy. Alex turned away from the window, unsettled by his own thoughts. He had always believed that people only did things expecting something in return: money, recognition, promotions, future favors. But what did Sarah gain from this? At the office, the routine was always the same. Sarah had become known as efficient, but somewhat clumsy, especially when she was nervous. That particular day, as she was finishing up a report, a notification popped up on her screen, a last-minute meeting with Alex Miller and the finance department. She swallowed hard. It wasn't that she was afraid of the CEO, but his presence had a strange weight in the room. Alex was known for his serious demeanor and sharp gaze. He was direct, to the point, and never wasted time on small talk. Sarah grabbed her notepad and headed to the meeting room on the 34th floor. As soon as she walked in, she felt the eyes of her colleagues on her and, more importantly, Alex's gaze. He recognized her immediately, but instead of greeting her or showing any expression of interest, he simply gave a small nod, signaling the meeting was about to begin. "Gentlemen, let's get straight to the point," Alex started, his voice firm. "The latest reports show solid growth, but we have unnecessary expenses that need to be optimized." The department heads began presenting numbers and suggestions while Sarah quietly took notes. She was so focused that she didn't even notice Alex looking directly at her for a brief moment before glancing away. When the meeting ended, Sarah stood up with the others, but before she could leave, a deep voice called her attention. "Sarah." Her body tensed instantly. He had said her name again. Turning around, she saw Alex leaning against the table, arms crossed, his expression neutral. "Come with me." Sarah simply nodded, trying to stay composed as she followed him to his office. Once inside, he closed the door and sat behind his spotless desk, motioning for her to take a seat across from him. "You've been working here for a few weeks. What do you think of the company so far?" She blinked a few times that question again. "I really like it. It's challenging, but I'm learning a lot. And do you have any plans for the future?" Sarah hesitated. She hadn't expected a CEO to take an interest in something so personal. "Well, I want to grow in the financial field, maybe get a more stable position, and who knows, pursue a postgraduate degree someday." Alex nodded slowly, as if processing the information. Then he changed the subject. "Every night when you leave the building, I see you helping those homeless people." Sarah's heart stopped for a moment. "You see?" she repeated, blinking. "My office overlooks the building entrance. I watch you every night." Sarah felt her face heat up. He'd been watching her every day. "It's not a problem, is it?" she asked hesitantly. "No," Alex shook his head. "I just don't understand. You do this every day. You spend your money, your time. You don't seem to want recognition. Why?" Sarah relaxed a little when she realized he wasn't judging her. He was just confused. "I like to help. But why?" she shrugged. "If I were in their place, I'd want someone to do the same for me. Besides, it's a small thing, but it makes a difference." Alex was silent for a moment, just watching her. Then he leaned forward and clasped his hands together on the desk. "And you do this every day?" "Yes." He let out a brief sigh and murmured something to himself before nodding. "You're dismissed." Sarah blinked. "What?" "You can go back to work." She hesitated for a second, before standing up and leaving the office. As she closed the door behind her, she stood still for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Later that evening, as she left the building, Sarah repeated her usual routine, buying food and handing it out to the homeless. Alex, from his office above, was still watching, but now he wasn't just watching, he was trying to understand. Why would someone so young, earning so little, choose to spend her money like that? He crossed his arms, feeling slightly irritated with himself. This doesn't make sense. And for the first time in a long while, he realized he wanted to understand. The days passed quickly, and without Sarah noticing, the end of the month arrived. Her routine at the company was well established by now. Work all day in the finance department, stop by the small market, buy food, cross the street, and hand it out to the homeless. And of course, without her knowing, Alex Miller continued watching from his office above. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't ignore it. Sarah never asked for anything in return, never bragged about it, never tried to use it for attention. She simply did it because she wanted to. And for some irritating reason, Alex wanted to understand why. But that Friday, something different happened. It was payday. When Sarah opened her banking app that morning, her heart filled with relief. Her first paycheck had come in. It wasn't a big amount, but it was enough to cover the rent, pay off some overdue bills, and buy groceries for the month. Or at least that was the plan. But as the day went by and work came to an end, one thought wouldn't leave her mind. Henry, the old man who had been living on the streets for years, always polite, always kind despite his tough situation. He wore a tattered coat, and his shoes were barely holding together. There was also Miss Sophie, who slept with a thin blanket, and Jack, the young man in his 20s, who always said he'd get out of this life soon, but never managed to find a job. Sarah knew she could do something more for them, and before she even realized it, she changed her route. She stepped into a discount clothing store and bought coats and shoes for Henry. She added a thick blanket for Sophie and a few essentials for the others. Then she went to the grocery store and bought enough food to make sure they all had a decent meal that night. By the time she left the store, her wallet was practically empty, but her heart felt full. "Sarah, this is too much," Henry said, holding the new coat with teary eyes. "I don't even know how to thank you," Sophie exclaimed, hugging the blanket. Jack, who always tried to act tough, just looked at his new sneakers and muttered, "This is going to help me get a job." "Sarah, thanks." She smiled, feeling that familiar warmth in her chest. "You don't have to thank me. You would do the same for me." That night was filled with more laughter than usual. The group was happy, and that was all that mattered to Sarah until she checked the time and realized a small but important detail. She had no money to get home. Sarah blinked a few times, hoping her brain would come up with a solution, but there wasn't one. She had spent every last cent. No time to dwell on it, she decided. The best option was to walk. After all, how long could it take? The answer came after 30 minutes of walking. The streets were getting emptier, the cold was creeping in, and her feet were aching in her uncomfortable work shoes. She sighed, pulling her thin coat tighter around her. There was still a long way to go. And then a sleek, black car pulled up beside her. Sarah watched as the window rolled down slowly, and when she looked inside, her heart skipped a beat. It was Alex Miller. He raised an eyebrow. "How far are you planning to walk?" Sarah opened her mouth but hesitated. Great, of all people, it had to be him. "Home," she answered, trying to sound casual. Alex glanced at the road ahead. "You live far?" "Yes." There was a brief silence before Alex sighed and unlocked the door. "Get in." Sarah hesitated. Getting a ride from the CEO of the company didn't seem like the best idea, but honestly, she was exhausted. So she accepted. The moment she got in, she felt the warmth of the car and sighed in relief. Alex drove in silence for a few minutes, then glanced at her. "Why are you walking home?" Sarah saw no reason to lie. "I kind of spent all my money." Alex's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "You got paid today?" "Yes." "And you already spent everything?" She nodded. "On what?" Sarah hesitated for a second before simply answering, "Helping the homeless." The car went completely silent. Sarah turned to look at him and found Alex staring at her, like she had just said something unbelievable. "You spent your entire paycheck helping strangers?" She let out a small, awkward laugh. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like a terrible financial decision." Alex blinked a few times. "Because it is." Sarah crossed her arms, looking out the window. "Not to me." Alex kept his eyes on the road, but she could tell he was processing what she had just said. After a few seconds, he took a deep breath. "Do you at least have money for rent?" Sarah smiled, looking away. "No, but I'll figure it out." Alex let out a short, humorless laugh. "Unbelievable. You're really—" He stopped mid-sentence. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "I'm really what?" "Different." She blinked. Was that a compliment? The rest of the ride was quiet, but not uncomfortably so. When Alex finally pulled up in front of her building, she let out a relieved sigh. "Thanks for the ride, Mr. Miller." He looked at her for a moment before replying, "If you're going to keep spending your money like this, at least let me know. I'll cover your ride home." Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "I'll manage. I always do." She opened the door and stepped out, but before entering the building, she turned to him and said something that made Alex Miller sit in his car for several minutes after she was gone. "Good night, Mr. Miller. And thank you for caring." He frowned, watching her disappear into the building, and then it hit him he actually cared. But why? Alex Miller didn't like distractions. His days were planned down to the minute, and he rarely deviated from his schedule. Work, meetings, reports, more work. He was a man of results, not sentimentality. But that Monday morning, as he sat at his desk in the office, something was bothering him in a way he couldn't ignore. He was distracted, and the reason was Sarah Carter. Friday night hadn't left his mind the moment he saw her walking alone. The way she hesitated before accepting the ride, their conversation in the car. She had spent her entire paycheck helping the homeless. Her entire paycheck. He repeated that thought in his mind, trying to make sense of it. What kind of person does that? Sarah Carter was reckless, irresponsible, and absurdly selfless, in a way that made no sense to him. But above all, she was intriguing, and Alex hated things he couldn't understand. The morning at the company went on as usual. Sarah arrived on time as always and started her work, unaware that the CEO was watching her from time to time. She looked normal, as if nothing had happened. "You can't just ignore this, Alex," he muttered to himself, tapping a pen against his desk. After an hour of staring at reports without being able to focus, Alex finally made a decision. He picked up the phone and pressed a button. "Call Sarah Carter to my office, now." Sarah was focused on organizing a document. When she received the message, her stomach tightened slightly. Why did Alex Miller want to see her? Her heart beat a little faster as she got up and walked down the hallways to the 35th floor, where the CEO's office was. The assistant greeted her with a nod and pointed to the door. "You can go in. He's waiting." Sarah took a deep breath, adjusted her blouse, and turned the doorknob. When she entered, she saw Alex sitting behind his large dark wooden desk, an unreadable expression on his face. "Close the door." She obeyed, trying to look calm. "You asked to see me, Mr. Miller?" He interlaced his fingers on the desk and studied her for a moment before speaking. "Yes. I want to understand something." "All right. What is it? Why do you do this?" Sarah frowned. "Do what?" "Spend your money helping people who will never give you anything in return." She blinked a few times. "So that's what this was about. You really want to know?" she asked, crossing her arms. Alex kept his gaze fixed on her. "I do." Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "I do it because I can, because I see them every day, and I know no one else cares, and because—" She paused, choosing her words. "If I were in their place, I'd want someone to do it for me." Alex rested his elbows on the desk, leaning forward slightly. "But you have no obligation to help them. No one is asking you to. Since when do we need an obligation to do the right thing?" There was a brief silence. Alex looked straight into her eyes. Sarah held his gaze, unwavering. He sighed and leaned back in his chair. "You're unbelievable." Sarah gave a slight smile. "I hear that a lot." Alex ran a hand over his face, as if dealing with an unsolvable puzzle. "You know you can't keep living like this, right? Spending all your money and putting yourself in difficult situations." "I know," Sarah shrugged, "but I always figure it out." He took a deep breath and shook his head. "All right, you can go back to work." Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but before she could open the door, Alex said something that made her stop in her tracks. "If you ever need money, let me know. I'll cover your transportation." She turned to face him. "Is this a joke?" "No, I'm serious." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "Mr. Miller, I appreciate the concern, but I can take care of myself." "That's what I thought. But Friday night, you were walking alone in the cold because you spent every last cent on strangers." Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it. He had a point. Alex crossed his arms. "Next time, at least accept a ride." Sarah stared at him for a few seconds before sighing. "If there's a next time, I'll think about it." And then she walked out. In the days that followed, Alex kept paying attention to her. Not because he wanted to, it was involuntary. He wanted to understand what drove that young woman. But the more he tried to find a logical answer, the more frustrated he became. Sarah remained the same. She worked, made subtle jokes with colleagues, always helped when someone needed it. And at the end of the day, she continued her routine with the homeless. And Alex kept watching, but for the first time, he didn't know what to do with that information. The following Friday, something unexpected happened. Sarah was just about to leave when a heavy rain started pouring outside. She looked at the wet streets and sighed. This would make things harder. Even so, she grabbed her umbrella and headed out, but as she reached the building's entrance, a black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down slowly, and there was Alex Miller. Sarah's eyes widened. "Mr. Miller?" He looked at her, expression unreadable. "You're really planning to go out in this rain?" She blinked. "I am." He sighed and unlocked the door. "Get in." Sarah hesitated. "Is this becoming a habit?" "Don't make it weird. Just get in." She chuckled and, for the second time, accepted the ride. The drive was quiet at first, the only sound being the rain against the windows. But after a few minutes, Alex broke the silence. "Have you ever thought about asking for a raise?" Sarah frowned. "What? Your salary clearly isn't enough. Have you ever asked for a raise?" She let out a brief laugh. "I think I'd have to work here for at least a year before even considering it." Alex kept his eyes on the road. "Maybe not." Sarah studied him. "What does that mean?" He shrugged. It means you might be more valuable to the company than you realize. She blinked a few times. Was that a compliment? But before she could ask, Alex pulled up in front of her building. Sarah hesitated before opening the door. Mr. Miller, why are you doing this? He turned to look at her. Doing what? This. Giving me rides, caring. Alex was silent for a moment before answering. Because for the first time, I really want to understand you. Sarah felt her heartbeat pick up just a little more than it should. Then she opened the door, stepped out of the car, and before entering the building, said something that made Alex smile for the first time in a long while. Good night, Mr. Miller, and thank you for the ride. He just watched as she walked inside and, without realizing it, he smiled slightly. Alex Miller had never considered himself a curious person. He always believed the world worked in simple ways. People did things expecting something in return. But Sarah Carter kept proving him wrong, and it frustrated him in a way he couldn't ignore. In the past few days, Alex had noticed something even stranger. He was starting to notice Sarah beyond work. It wasn't just about the ride or the ridiculous way she spent her money. Now he noticed her presence in the office, the way she made subtle jokes when she was comfortable, the way she furrowed her brows when she focused, the way she helped colleagues without expecting recognition. And the most irritating part? She had no idea of the impact she had. That Monday morning, Alex was in his office reviewing reports when he heard a conversation near the door. Sarah, do you have a second? It was Mark, one of the finance managers. Of course, what's up? Sarah's voice was light and cheerful. I need help with a report. Can you review it for me? There was a short pause before Sarah replied. I'm not sure I'm the best person for this, but I can try. Alex frowned. Why did she always doubt her own abilities? He knew Sarah was good at what she did better than most people there, but for some reason, she didn't see it. And he hated realizing that he wanted her to see it. At the end of the workday, Alex watched Sarah leave the building and head to the same small market. He shouldn't have been surprised. It was part of her routine. But this time, something felt off. Sarah wasn't smiling like she usually did. Inside the store, Sarah picked up a few items and placed them on the counter. The cashier looked at her with a small smile. The usual? Sarah hesitated. She looked at her wallet, then at the items, and for the first time in a long while, she realized she wouldn't be able to buy everything she wanted. This month's paycheck had run out faster than she expected. She still had rent to pay, bills, groceries for the week. She never minded sacrificing her own comfort to help others, but at that moment, reality hit her a little harder than usual. Sarah? The cashier called. She smiled, trying to hide it. I'll take a little less today, but next week I'll make up for it. He nodded, packing up the items. Sarah left the market and crossed the street to where the homeless people were. But unlike other days, she didn't feel the same lightness in her chest, because for the first time, she asked herself, what if one day I can't help them anymore? From the top of the building, Alex Miller noticed something different that night. Sarah was still there, handing out food, but there was something in the way she moved. In the way she looked at the homeless people, a subtle detail, but he caught it. And without a second thought, he picked up his phone and pressed a button. Call Sarah Carter to my office, now. Sarah was putting away her things when she got the message. She sighed. What did Alex Miller want now? With exhaustion weighing on her shoulders, she grabbed her badge and headed to the 35th floor. When she entered the office, Alex was already standing, leaning against his desk, arms crossed. He studied her for a moment before speaking. Closed the door. Sarah raised an eyebrow but obeyed. Mr. Miller, if this is about what we talked about earlier, I already made it clear that I'm fine. Are you really? She hesitated. Alex was good at reading people. And right now, he was reading Sarah like an open book. He took a step forward. Today you bought less than usual. Sarah froze. You were watching me? I always watch. She blinked a few times, trying to process that. Mr. Miller, I know you think my habit is strange, but I really don't need. Ask for a raise. Sarah stopped. What? Alex crossed his arms. You deserve a raise. Ask for one. Sarah frowned. I don't think it's the right time. Alex narrowed his eyes. Sarah, you work harder than many employees here. You deserve better pay. I've only been here a few months, and you want to wait a whole year struggling before realizing you deserved more? Sarah swallowed hard. She didn't know how to respond to that. Alex watched her for a moment, before sighing. You need to learn to value yourself. She looked away. I know my worth. He smirked slightly. almost challenging. "No, you don't." "But I do." Sarah felt her heart beat a little faster than it should. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. Alex was silent for a moment before answering. "Because I want to understand you." And for some reason, that was the most honest thing he had ever said to anyone. Sarah blinked a few times, processing that. Then she did something that caught Alex completely off guard. She smiled. "You're a very unusual CEO, Mr. Miller." Alex raised an eyebrow. "And you're the most stubborn employee I've ever met." She laughed. He smirked slightly. And for the first time since meeting Sarah Carter, Alex Miller realized he didn't just want to understand her, he wanted to see what would happen if he kept caring. In the days that followed, something changed. Sarah was still the same, still dedicated to her work, still helping the homeless every night. But now Alex wasn't just watching, he was getting involved. He called her to his office more often, talked to her more, tested her knowledge, asked questions. And with each passing day, he became more certain of one thing. Sarah Carter was unlike anyone he had ever met, and that both unsettled and fascinated him. But more than anything, he wanted to see where this would lead. For Alex Miller, everything was a game of strategy. After all, that's how he built a billion-dollar empire. He was always surrounded by ambitious, competent people, most of them only looking out for themselves. But Sarah Carter didn't play that game. She was different. She didn't try to impress. She didn't seek attention, and yet he couldn't ignore her. And that bothered him more than he cared to admit. In the past few days, Alex noticed that Sarah underestimated herself. She was dedicated, insightful, and hardworking, but she didn't see her own value. He didn't know why that irritated him so much, but he knew he wanted to test her, to find out if she was as capable as he was starting to suspect. On Tuesday morning, Alex entered his office and called one of his directors. "Prepare a report on last quarter's operating costs. I want it delivered by the end of the week." The director nodded, but before he could leave the room, Alex added, "And put Sarah Carter on the team." The man blinked a few times. "Sarah Carter, the junior assistant?" "Yes." The director hesitated. "She's new. Are you sure she can handle it?" Alex crossed his arms. "I want to see what she's capable of." Sarah was in the middle of a report when she received an email about a new project. She frowned as she looked at the details. Operating costs for the last quarter, detailed report, presentation for the board members, and even stranger, her name was on the team. She raised an eyebrow. Was this a mistake? Before she could think any further, she received a direct message from Alex Miller himself. "Come to my office now." Sarah took a deep breath and stood up. When she entered the office, Alex was standing next to his desk, holding a cup of coffee. He looked up as she walked in. "Close the door." Sarah obeyed, trying to stay calm. "Mr. Miller, this email, was it a mistake?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "What mistake?" "My name being on this project. I'm just an assistant." He crossed his arms, and she frowned. Usually only more experienced employees work on projects like this. Alex took a sip of coffee, as if it wasn't a big deal. "Well, now you have experience." Sarah blinked. "That's how it works?" He shrugged. "How it does." She narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "Is this a test?" Alex gave a slight smile. "What if it is?" Sarah crossed her arms. "Why?" He held her gaze for a few seconds before answering. "Because I think you're better than you believe. I want to see if I'm right." She didn't know how to respond to that because, for the first time, someone believed in her before she believed in herself. And that was new. The week passed quickly. The project was harder than Sarah had expected. She had to review numbers, analyze past reports, and understand the company's financial details. But surprisingly, she liked the challenge. On Thursday night, while reviewing the material, she received an unexpected email from Alex. "Report ready?" Sarah replied, "Almost. Just finishing the final adjustments." His response came seconds later. "Meet me in my office now." Sarah swallowed hard. She got up and went to the 35th floor. When she walked in, Alex was sitting at his desk, reading some documents. He looked at her and pointed to the chair in front of him. "Sit down." Sarah obeyed, feeling a slight nervousness. He picked up a copy of her report and analyzed it for a few seconds before speaking. "It's better than I expected." She raised an eyebrow. "Was that a compliment?" Alex gave a small smile. "You decide." Sarah rolled her eyes but smiled. He placed the report on the desk. "The presentation is tomorrow. Are you ready?" She hesitated for a second before nodding. Yes. Alex looked at her for a few seconds, and then he said something that completely caught her off guard. Good job, Sarah. Sarah froze for a moment. She wasn't used to compliments, and coming from Alex Miller, it meant even more. She took a deep breath and smiled. Thank you, Mr. Miller. He nodded, and for the first time since he met her, Alex noticed something new. He wanted to see her grow, not just in the company, but because he cared. And that was dangerous. On Friday, Sarah was ready for the presentation. The board members were gathered in the meeting room. Alex walked in and took a seat at the head of the table. He looked at Sarah and gave a slight nod. She took a deep breath and began. She talked about operational costs, presented charts, and highlighted areas for improvement, and for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged there. When she finished, the room was silent for a few seconds, and then one of the board members started clapping. The others followed, and Sarah could hardly believe it. Alex looked at her with a different expression in his eyes. Well done, Carter. She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest, and for the first time she believed she could be more than she had imagined. Alex was right about her, and in that moment, she finally saw it. Sarah Carter was not used to recognition. She had always worked hard, but was never the type to draw attention. Her focus was on doing a good job and staying on track. But after that Friday's presentation, everything changed. The way people looked at her in the office was different. More people greeted her. Some even came to ask for advice. And the strangest thing of all, Alex Miller seemed genuinely pleased. On Monday morning, Sarah arrived at work and found an envelope on her desk. She frowned when she saw her name written on the front. Opening it, she found a short, direct note. Good job on the presentation. Consider this an encouragement, LM. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Inside the envelope, there was a considerable bonus attached to her paycheck. She held her breath. Is this serious? Before she could process it, she sensed someone standing next to her. Good morning, Carter. She turned quickly and saw Alex standing there, hands in his pockets, his expression neutral. Mr. Miller, this is a bonus. He nodded. Yes. Sarah blinked a few times. Why? Because you deserve it. Her heart skipped a beat. Alex wasn't the kind of boss who handed out compliments lightly. If he was saying this, it was because he truly meant it. And somehow that meant more than it should. Thank you, she said, genuinely touched. He just nodded and stepped away, and Sarah stood there, trying to understand exactly what was happening between them. In the days that followed, Alex started acting differently. He called Sarah into more meetings, asked for her input on decisions that were usually reserved for executives. And the most intriguing part, he looked at her differently. Not in an obvious way, but Sarah could feel when he was watching her, and sometimes she caught herself watching him back. One evening after work, Sarah left the building and, as usual, headed to the small grocery store. But this time, as she walked out, she noticed a black car parked across the street. The window rolled down slowly, and there he was, Alex Miller. You really going to keep doing this even after the bonus? He asked, a hint of humor in his voice. Sarah laughed. Of course. He watched her for a moment before opening the car door. Get in. Sarah blinked. Excuse me. What? Get in the car. I want to see this for myself. She frowned. You want what? I want to see it with my own eyes. Sarah hesitated for a moment, but then something inside her told her to go. And for the first time, Alex Miller went with her to see the homeless community. The scene was almost comical. The people looked at Alex like he was from another planet, and to be fair, he did seem completely out of place. Sarah had to hold back a laugh when Henry, the oldest of the group, eyed Alex suspiciously. You're Sarah's boss? Alex nodded, crossing his arms. Yes. Henry looked him up and down. Huh? Never thought I'd see a suit around here. Surprise, Alex said flatly. Sarah had to bite her tongue to keep from laughing. But as she handed out the food, she noticed Alex was really paying attention. He saw how people thanked her, saw their smiles, saw the real impact of what she did. And for the first time, he had no idea what to say. When they finished, Sarah turned to Alex. Well, what did you think? He looked thoughtful. It's different seeing it up close. She smiled. Helping people feels good. You should try it more often. He raised an eyebrow. Don't get used to it. Sarah laughed, but deep down, she had a feeling that Alex Miller had just changed, just a little, and maybe he didn't even realize it yet. In the days that followed, their relationship shifted, not in an obvious way, but it was there. There were more glances, more casual conversations, and above all, a growing connection that neither of them wanted to admit, but one that inevitably was happening. The question was, how far would it go? Sarah Carter never thought that in such a short time, she would feel like she truly belonged at the company. After the successful presentation, the unexpected bonus, and most of all, after that night when Alex Miller joined her in her volunteer work, something had changed, not just in her relationship with her colleagues, but also with Alex. There was an unspoken understanding between them, something neither of them said out loud, but something impossible to ignore. And maybe that's why some people started noticing and didn't like it one bit. The day started like any other. Sarah was reviewing documents when she received an unexpected notification, an email marked as urgent sent by the finance director. "I need to speak with you now." "Conference room 3. Sarah frowned. That was strange. Still, she grabbed her notebook and headed to the room. When she entered, she found the director, the department manager, and 2 other supervisors, and at the center of the table, a pile of printed documents. The atmosphere was tense. "Sarah, take a seat," the director said, getting straight to the point. She did, but a sense of unease started growing inside her. "What's going on?" she asked. The manager took a deep breath and pointed at the papers. "These are the reports you submitted last week." She looked at the documents. Yes, they were the same operational cost reports. And the director threw another set of papers in front of her. "These are the reports reviewed by the audit team, and there are serious discrepancies in the numbers." Sarah frowned. "Excuse me, what?" The manager crossed his arms. "You're being accused of financial data manipulation." Sarah's heart sank. This is a mistake." She grabbed the papers and quickly examined them. The numbers were different from what she had submitted, but something was off. "These weren't my numbers." "These reports were altered," she said, her voice firm. The director didn't look convinced. "Are you sure?" Sarah felt her face heat up. "I would never alter financial data." The manager held her gaze for a long moment before letting out a sigh. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but the board has decided to suspend you until this is resolved." It felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Suspended? "It's standard procedure for cases like this," the director explained. "While we investigate, you'll be placed on leave without access to the company's systems." Sarah tried to process his words, but the only thought in her mind was, "This can't be happening." Hours later, Sarah was leaving the building with her belongings in a box. People glanced at her with curiosity. Some whispered, others avoided eye contact. She felt a knot tighten in her chest, and then she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Sarah." She turned to see Alex Miller striding toward her, his steps quick, his expression serious. Her heart clenched even tighter. "So you've heard," she murmured. He stopped in front of her, his sharp eyes studying her. "What the hell is going on?" Sarah bit her lip, trying to contain her frustration. "I've been suspended. They're accusing me of data manipulation." Alex's eyes darkened with something dangerous. "That's ridiculous, I know, but I have no way to prove I didn't do anything wrong." He was silent for a moment, then crossed his arms. "Who reviewed your reports?" Sarah took a deep breath. "The finance manager and one of the supervisors." "But I swear, Alex, I didn't do this." His eyes narrowed slightly. "I believe you," she blinked. He believed her. Alex took a deep breath, as if trying to control his frustration. "Give me some time. I'll fix this." Sarah shook her head. "Alex, you can't just step in. This could hurt you." He raised an eyebrow. "Do you really think I care about that?" She had no response. Then he took a step closer and said quietly, "Don't go too far. This isn't over." And in that moment, Sarah believed him, because for the first time, someone was willing to fight for her. For the next 2 days, Sarah stayed home, unsure of what to do. She didn't know where to go, what to think, or how to prove her innocence. But then on Wednesday afternoon, she received an unexpected message. It was from an unknown number. "Sarah, I found something. Be at the office tomorrow morning." Her heart pounded. What had Alex discovered? The next morning, Sarah returned to the building. People stared as she walked down the hallway, but she didn't care. The only thing on her mind was finding out what Alex had to say. When she stepped into his office, her heart nearly stopped, because Alex wasn't alone. The finance manager and one of the supervisors were sitting at the table, looking visibly uncomfortable, and Alex, as always, was in complete control of the situation. "Sarah, have a seat." She obeyed, feeling the tension in the air. Alex crossed his arms and looked directly at the manager. "Why don't you tell her what we just found out?" The manager swallowed hard. There was an error in the report review. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "An error?" "Yes. There was a file mix-up, and it ended up looking like you had altered the data, but in reality, it was an internal mistake." Sarah felt a mix of relief and anger. "So you suspended me without even verifying the facts?" The supervisor averted his gaze, clearly ashamed. It was a rushed decision. Alex slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. "A rushed decision? You nearly destroyed the career of a competent employee because of incompetence." The two men shrank back. "This won't be ignored," Alex said coldly. "I want a formal apology sent to Sarah and a full report on what happened." The manager nodded quickly. "Of course, Mr. Miller." Alex then turned to Sarah. "You can return to work immediately." She held her breath. "Really? Really? And honestly, I'm surprised you even want to stay after this mess." She smirked. "Well, I'm not the type to give up easily." Alex smiled back. "I've noticed." When Sarah left the office, she felt an enormous weight lift off her shoulders. She was back, but more importantly, she knew Alex Miller was on her side. And deep down, that meant more than any bonus or promotion, because, for the first time, she wasn't alone. She knew that if Alex hadn't stepped in, she would probably still be trying to prove something she didn't do, and that meant she owed him a favor. She didn't like owing anyone anything, especially not the CEO of the company, but deep down, there was something about knowing that Alex had cared that made her feel uncomfortably warm inside. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at the company felt different. Sarah noticed that people looked at her differently now, not with disdain, but with a certain curiosity and even respect. After all, not everyone walked away unscathed from a situation like that, but more than that, Alex was different. Not in an obvious way, but Sarah could sense it. He passed by her desk more often, asked more about the reports, looked at her in a way that left her unsettled. And then something completely unexpected happened. On Friday afternoon, as Sarah was going through some emails, her phone buzzed with a direct message. It was from Alex. "Dinner tonight. You're coming." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What?" She stared at the screen for a second, making sure she had read it correctly. Was he inviting her to dinner, or was this an order? She bit her lip, trying to ignore the sudden nervousness, and replied, "Is this an invitation or a summons?" The response came seconds later, a summons. Sarah rolled her eyes but chuckled. "And what's the occasion?" "Let's call it a celebration for getting you out of that sabotage mess." Sarah let out a dramatic sigh. "So in reality, this is just a trap to remind me that I owe you?" "Exactly. See you at 8:00 p.m. I'll send you the address." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. This was a terrible idea, but for some reason, she knew she was going to say yes. That night, Sarah arrived at the restaurant a little early. The place was upscale, with dim lighting and an elegant atmosphere definitely out of her comfort zone. As soon as she stepped in, a hostess led her to the table, where Alex was already seated, waiting. He looked up at her and gave a small smile. "Punctual. I like that." Sarah raised an eyebrow as she took her seat. "This place is way too fancy for someone who thinks a granola bar qualifies as a decent dinner." Alex chuckled. "I wanted to impress." She picked up the menu and pretended to study it. "You want to impress me?" He lifted his wine glass, watching her over the rim. Apparently, yes. Sarah felt warmth creeping up her neck. "All right, so what's the real reason for this dinner?" Alex leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I wanted to see how you were doing after everything that happened." She frowned slightly. "I'm fine." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you?" Sarah hesitated for a moment before sighing. "Okay, it was awful." Alex nodded, satisfied with her honesty. "And now, how do you feel?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I guess I'm stronger than I thought." He gave a slight smile. "Yes, you are." Sarah held his gaze for a moment, and that's when she realized this wasn't just a casual dinner. There was something different about that night. A tension in the air that neither of them wanted to admit, but both of them felt it. The conversation flowed more easily after that. Sarah noticed that when Alex relaxed, he wasn't as intimidating as he was at the office. In fact, he even had a dry, sarcastic sense of humor that amused her. And Alex realized that Sarah was even more charming outside of work. After an hour of conversation, the waiter brought the check. Sarah reached for her wallet, but Alex stopped her with a look. "You're not thinking of paying, are you?" She raised an eyebrow. I can at least split it." "No, that's old-fashioned." Alex smiled. "Call it traditional." She rolled her eyes but smiled too. As they walked out of the restaurant, the atmosphere between them felt different. There was a new weight in the air, something unspoken but undeniable. And for the first time, Sarah realized she might be playing with fire, because until that moment, she had never really stopped to think about what it meant to have Alex Miller's full attention. But now it was impossible not to notice. He opened the car door for her, and just before she got in, he said something that made her heart race. "I enjoyed tonight." Sarah swallowed hard. "It was just dinner. Don't get used to it." Alex smirked. Too late. She got into the car before her brain had time to process what that really meant. But one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Sarah never imagined that a casual dinner, okay, maybe not so casual, could change so much between her and Alex. By the following Monday, when she walked into the office, she expected everything to go back to normal. But to her surprise, nothing was normal. Something was different. And the most frustrating part? She knew the reason was Alex. He wasn't acting differently, but Sarah could feel the shift in the way he looked at her, in the way others looked at her after they had dinner together, and most of all, in the way her own heart reacted every time he was near, which was a huge problem because Alex Miller was not someone to play around with. That morning, Sarah was focused on a report when she heard someone clear their throat beside her. She looked up and saw Alex standing there, hands in his pockets, expression neutral. "Would you accompany the CEO to the cafe?" Sarah blinked a few times. Was that an invitation? It was a summons. She rolled her eyes but smiled and stood up. They walked to the company cafe together, and Sarah noticed the way people were watching them. People were paying attention, but Alex didn't seem to care in the slightest. When they reached the counter, he placed the order without even asking what she wanted. "Black coffee, no sugar," he told the barista. Sarah crossed her arms. "You think you know me well, don't you?" Alex gave a small smirk. "I think so." Sarah tried not to focus on the fact that maybe he actually did. When they got their coffees, Alex led her to a table in a quieter corner. He stayed silent for a moment before speaking. "Sarah, I want you to start joining more executive meetings." She nearly choked on her coffee. "Wait, what?" He looked at her seriously. "You have potential. I want to see how far you can go." Sarah blinked a few times, trying to process. "And what if I don't want to? Then give me a good reason." She bit her lip, hesitant. The truth? She wanted to, but the fear of messing up was holding her back. Alex seemed to notice. "You're afraid of failing." Sarah took a deep breath. "I don't like making mistakes." Alex rested his arms on the table and looked directly at her, then learned to fail without fear. Sarah had no words, but deep down, she knew he was right, and maybe it was time to take the challenge. In the following days, Sarah realized Alex was serious about this. She started getting invited to important meetings. He asked for her opinion more often, and slowly, the way people in the company looked at her began to change. She was no longer just an assistant. She was someone Alex Miller valued, and that didn't go unnoticed. On Friday, Sarah was organizing a report when she got a notification, a message from Alex. "Dinner tonight." She raised an eyebrow. This time he was actually asking, but the problem? Sarah knew that if she said yes, she'd be crossing an invisible line. She typed a reply, "Can't tonight." His response came in seconds. "Understood. But one day you'll say yes." Sarah let out a sigh because deep down she knew he was right. The question was, what would happen when that day finally came? Sarah thought that turning down Alex's dinner invitation would clear up any emotional confusion, but she was very wrong. In fact, it only seemed to make his interest grow. And the worst part? Her own interest was growing too. Days passed, and Sarah's new routine included more meetings, more challenges, and more interactions with Alex. She loved everything she was learning, but she also hated the fact that more and more, she and Alex seemed to be playing a dangerous game, a game no one dared to mention, but one they both felt. On Wednesday afternoon, Sarah was at the company cafe getting coffee when she sensed someone stepping closer. She didn't need to look to know who it was. "Black coffee, no sugar," Alex murmured beside her. Sarah smirked. "If I ever change my order, will you lose your mind?" He raised an eyebrow. "No, but I'd be disappointed." She laughed. They took their coffees and sat at a quiet table, and for a moment, it felt like they were just two normal people. But then Alex broke the silence. "Why did you turn down dinner that night?" Sarah wasn't expecting that question. She blinked a few times before answering, because it would be a terrible idea. Alex tilted his head slightly, studying her. "And why is that?" She crossed her arms. "Because you're my boss." He gave a slight smile. "That's never been a problem before." Sarah felt her face heat up. "Don't make this weird." "I'm not the one making it weird." She let out a heavy sigh. "Alex, we both know this can't happen." He was silent for a moment before replying. "And what if I wanted it to?" Sarah's heart raced. He was being direct now, but she couldn't cross that line. So she took a deep breath and gave him a small smile. "Then that would be your problem." And she walked away before he could say anything else. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep well. She knew Alex wasn't the kind of man who gave up easily. And for the first time, she wondered if she wanted him to give up on this. The problem? She already knew the answer, but admitting it was another story. In the days that followed, things felt different. Alex didn't back off, but he also didn't push. He was just there, watching her, waiting, and Sarah knew at some point she would give in. The only question was when. For the last few days, Sarah had been pretending nothing was happening, pretending that the way Alex looked at her didn't make her heart race, pretending that the fact he hadn't asked her again about dinner didn't leave her disappointed. But the truth was simple. The tension between them was becoming unbearable, and Sarah knew that sooner or later, something had to happen. On Friday morning, Sarah sat at her desk, focused on the report Alex had requested. Or at least, she was trying to focus, because every 5 minutes, her mind drifted back to him, to the way he looked at her, to the way he seemed to be waiting for her to give in. And the worst part? She wasn't sure if she wanted to keep resisting. Sighing, she shook her head and tried to focus on the numbers in front of her. But then her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Alex, my office. Now, Sarah rolled her eyes, but her heart skipped a beat. She grabbed her notebook and stood up, trying to look casual, but deep down, she knew nothing about this conversation would be normal. When she walked into Alex's office, she immediately noticed something different. He wasn't sitting behind his desk like he usually did. Instead, he was standing by the window, looking out at the city. Sarah closed the door softly. "Do you need something, Mr. Miller?" she asked, trying to keep her tone professional. Alex turned to face her and stared for a long moment, and then, without hesitation, he asked, "How long do you plan on pretending you don't feel what I feel?" Sarah's heart stopped for a second. She hadn't expected him to be so direct. Swallowing hard, she crossed her arms. "And what exactly do you think I feel?" Alex gave a small smile, as if he knew something she hadn't admitted to herself yet. "I think you feel the same way I do." Sarah looked away, trying to control the wave of emotions rising inside her. "This can't happen, Alex." He took a step closer. "Why not?" She met his gaze again. "Because you're my boss." And Sarah blinked. "And it's wrong." Alex raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "Wrong for who? For others or for you?" She said nothing because she didn't have an answer for that, and Alex knew it. He took another step closer, closing the space between them. "Give me one real reason why this shouldn't happen." Sarah took a deep breath. "Because it will go wrong." Alex tilted his head slightly. "And what if it goes right?" She held her breath because, for the first time, she considered that possibility. And that was terrifying. The silence between them was filled with something neither of them dared to say. Sarah felt the heat radiating from Alex, the intensity of his gaze. It was like he was waiting for her to give in, and maybe she wanted to. But before she could do anything, Alex's phone rang, breaking the moment. He looked at the screen and sighed. "I need to take this." Sarah nodded quickly, taking the chance to leave. She needed air. For the next few days, Sarah avoided Alex as much as she could, not because she was angry, but because she knew that if she stayed close to him, she wouldn't be able to resist. And right now, she wasn't ready to deal with that. But Alex didn't seem willing to let it go. On Tuesday afternoon, she got a message from him. "Dinner tonight. No excuses." Sarah bit her lip, hesitating. She knew that if she said yes, there would be no turning back. But before she could reply, Alex sent another message. "Just dinner. I promise." Sarah let out a deep breath, and before she could change her mind, she answered, "Okay." Dinner was surprisingly easy. They talked about work, funny office stories, normal things, and for a moment, Sarah let herself forget about the weight of the situation. But as they were leaving the restaurant, the inevitable happened. Alex grabbed her arm before she could get into the taxi. She looked at him, surprised. "Sarah." His voice was lower, more intense. Her heart pounded. And then, before she could think, Alex leaned in and kissed her. The kiss wasn't planned. It wasn't something that followed logic. It was inevitable. There was desire, tension, but also something else. Something Sarah didn't want to admit. When they pulled apart, Alex looked into her eyes and gave a slight smile. "Is this still a mistake to you?" Sarah didn't know how to answer because, at that moment, the only thing on her mind was the fact that she wanted to kiss him again. And maybe that was the most dangerous thing of all. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about that kiss. It was irrational, it was wrong, and yet she couldn't bring herself to wish it hadn't happened. Ever since she met Alex Miller, her life had completely spun out of control, and now there was no more pretending that nothing was happening. The problem was, what to do about it. The next morning, Sarah woke up more exhausted than when she'd gone to bed. The night had been a massive tangle of thoughts, memories of the kiss, and the crushing uncertainty of what it all meant. She needed to be rational. She worked for Alex. He was her boss. This could complicate everything. But even as she repeated those arguments in her head, she knew it was already too late. Because the truth was simple. She wanted more. And that was a problem. At the office, things felt different. Not in an obvious way, but Sarah could feel Alex's eyes on her. Every time he walked past her desk, he didn't mention the kiss, but he also didn't avoid her. It was as if he was waiting for her to make a decision, and the longer she waited, the more she realized she needed to decide soon. On Friday, at the end of the workday, Sarah was packing up her things when she got an unexpected notification, a message from Alex's penthouse, 8:00 p.m. Sarah's heart raced. She knew that if she went, there would be no more uncertainty, but at that moment, she didn't want to run anymore. So she took a deep breath and decided to go. When she arrived at the penthouse, Alex was already there, leaning against the railing, looking out at the city. He turned when he heard her approaching. "I thought you wouldn't come." Sarah gave a small smile. "I thought about not coming." He raised an eyebrow. "So why did you?" She was silent for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and told the truth. "Because I don't want to run from this." Alex held her gaze for a moment, and then, without saying a word, he stepped closer and kissed her again. This time, there were no doubts, no excuses. It was real, and Sarah didn't want to fight it anymore. But when they pulled apart, one question lingered in the air. What now? In the days that followed, Sarah and Alex continued seeing each other outside of work. But inside the office, nothing changed. They were professionals. But those who knew them well were starting to sense that something was different. And Sarah knew it wouldn't be long before someone started asking questions. On Monday, Alex called her into his office. Sarah closed the door and crossed her arms. "Is this about work or about us?" He gave a small smile. "This time, about us." She swallowed hard. "What is it?" He looked at her seriously. "This can't stay a secret forever." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. "You want to make this public?" Alex shrugged. "I don't want to hide. I don't need to." Sarah was silent for a moment. Then she took a deep breath and nodded. Because deep down, she knew this day would come. The idea of not hiding what was happening between her and Alex scared Sarah more than she wanted to admit. Lately, everything had been simple, at least as simple as a relationship with Alex Miller could be. Outside of work, they saw each other every night. They talked about everything. They laughed together. And to her own surprise, Sarah was starting to enjoy it more than she should. But inside the office, things were still the same, or at least they were until now. The next morning, Sarah arrived at work feeling a strange tension in the air. People were looking at her differently. Some whispered to each other, others just stared openly. She frowned, confused, and then she saw something that made her stomach drop. On a nearby computer screen, a news article was open. CEO of Miller Enterprises spotted having intimate dinner with an employee. Sarah held her breath. Her name wasn't in the article, but the photo was of her and Alex leaving the restaurant last week. She felt her face heat up. She went straight to her desk and grabbed her phone. A message from Alex was already waiting. "My office." Now, when she walked into his office, Sarah shut the door and crossed her arms. So this went public sooner than we expected. Alex was sitting on the edge of his desk, holding his phone. He didn't look surprised at all. "Someone saw us at the restaurant." Sarah let out a breath. "And now?" Alex shrugged. "Now we move forward." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's it? You don't care?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "Do you care?" Sarah opened her mouth to answer, but she realized she didn't know the answer. In the days that followed, the gossip spread like wildfire at the office. Everyone had an opinion. Some said Sarah was trying to climb the corporate ladder. Others thought she was just another distraction for Alex. And with every new rumor, she felt more and more suffocated. But Alex? Alex seemed unfazed. He didn't let it shake him. And in a way, that irritated her, because for her, this wasn't simple. This was her career, her life, and now it was being treated like a scandal. On Friday, after an especially tough day, Sarah was gathering her things to leave when Alex appeared beside her desk. "Let's go," she frowned. "Where to?" "A place where no one will bother us." She hesitated for a second, but then she realized she needed this, so she grabbed her things and followed him. They went to a quiet restaurant far from prying eyes, and for the first time in days, Sarah took a deep breath and relaxed. Alex noticed. "Tough day?" She let out a humorless laugh. "One of the worst." He held her gaze for a moment. "I can fix this." Sarah shook her head. "No, if I can't handle this on my own, then I'm not strong enough to be here." Alex gave a small smile. "That's one of the things I like most about you." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. But before she could respond, he reached across the table and took her hand. "We'll get through this." And in that moment, Sarah wanted to believe him, because, despite everything, she didn't want to give up. Not on this. Not on him. Sarah never imagined her life would take this turn. When she started working at Miller Enterprises, all she wanted was stability. Now her life was splashed across gossip websites. There were whispers at the office, curious stares, and judgments she never asked for. But there was also Alex. And no matter how chaotic everything around her felt, when she was with him, it all made sense. On Monday morning, Sarah walked into the office, determined to face everything head-on. She wouldn't hide. She wouldn't let anyone define her story. And to her surprise, as the day went on, the comments started fading. People moved on from scandals quickly, and it seemed they were ready for the next one. But for Sarah, the real test was still ahead, because lately, there was something different about Alex, something in the way he looked at her, something in the brief pauses before he spoke, as if he was waiting for the right moment for something. And deep down, Sarah felt that moment coming. On Friday night, Alex invited her to a special dinner, but this time, something about the atmosphere was different. The restaurant was private, the table decorated with candles and flowers, and when Alex took her hand, Sarah knew something big was about to happen. He looked into her eyes and took a deep breath. "Sarah, I've never been good at expressing emotions." She gave a small smile. "I noticed." He chuckled. "But you changed that." Sarah's heart pounded. Alex let out a sigh and continued. "I thought my life was complete, that I had everything. But then you came along, and for the first time, I realized I was missing something." Sarah felt her eyes sting with tears. He smiled slightly before kneeling in front of her. Sarah's eyes widened, and she felt breathless. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, and inside, a stunning ring gleamed under the restaurant's soft light. "I never imagined I'd find someone like you." Alex held her hand firmly. "Someone who challenges me, makes me laugh, makes me want to be a better man." Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks. "You taught me that life isn't just about success, but about who we have by our side to share it with." Alex took a deep breath, his eyes locked on hers. "So, Sarah Carter, will you be my wife?" Sarah's heart felt like it would burst. She couldn't stop smiling, even as the tears fell. And then she spoke the words that would change her life forever. "Yes." For the first time in a long while, Alex smiled openly. He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss full of promises. In that moment, nothing else mattered, nothing, except the fact that they had chosen each other. Months later, the big day finally arrived. Sarah had never felt so nervous, but she had also never felt so happy. She stood in front of the mirror wearing a breathtaking white dress. Her eyes sparkled with emotion, and when the church doors opened, she saw Alex at the altar. He looked impeccable in his black suit, but his eyes held the same intensity as always. But now there was something new, something deeper, something only she had the privilege of knowing. As Sarah walked down the aisle, everything around her faded away. It was just her and him, and when she stopped in front of him, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The judge began the ceremony. But Sarah barely heard the words. All she could feel was Alex's presence, the way he held her hand so firmly, as if he would never let go. Then finally, it was time for the vows. Alex looked at her and smiled. "Sarah, I never imagined that someone like you would walk into my life and turn everything upside down in the most perfect way." She let out a soft laugh, feeling tears well up. "I've always been a man who needed certainty, but you taught me that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan." Alex took a deep breath before continuing. "I promise to love you, to support you, and to remind you every day how much you've made my life better." Sarah swallowed her tears and squeezed his hands. Then it was her turn. "Alex, when I met you, I had no idea how much you would turn my world upside down." He chuckled softly. Sarah smiled. "But now I can't imagine my life without you." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I promise to love you even when you're stubborn. I promise to laugh at your bad jokes. I promise to stand by your side through every victory and every challenge." Sarah looked into his eyes. "And most of all, I promise to be yours, today and always." Alex swallowed hard, clearly moved, and when they finally heard the words, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," he didn't wait. He pulled Sarah into a passionate kiss, as everyone around them clapped and wiped away tears. And in that moment, they knew this was only the first page of a new story, a story they would write together forever.